For the past 11 years, I have been quietly building a pantry that could survive any shortage. While everyone rushes to Costco to fight over the same pallets of freeze-dried meals, I stock items that cost less, last longer, and here is the kicker, are still sitting on shelves right now. Number 9 is at your local ethnic grocery store for under $4, and it has more nutrition per pound than almost anything in the prepper aisle. The problem is that when everyone reads the same survival blogs and buys the same stuff, that is exactly what disappears first. Back in March 2020, I watched rice and beans get cleared out in under 2 hours at every store in my county. But there were 13 items, foods that legitimately never expire, that nobody touched. I walked in 3 days later and bought them without competition. No lines, no limits. Full stock. What I am about to share is not some list you have seen before. These are foods that slip under the radar because mainstream prepper culture ignores them, which makes them the smartest things you can stockpile right now. Before we dive in, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button, because next week I am exposing the prepper gear everyone swears by that will get you killed in a real crisis. And you do not want to miss that. Let me start with number 1, and this is going to sound weird at first. Ghee, clarified butter. Before you think this is some fancy chef thing, stay with me. Ghee has been stored without refrigeration in India for over 5,000 years. It does not go rancid like regular butter because all the milk solids are removed. What you are left with is pure fat, and fat is the calorie king. 1 tablespoon has 120 calories of pure energy. During a real shortage, carbs are easy to find. Protein you can manage. But fat, the macro your body needs to absorb vitamins and keep your brain working, disappears fast. Last February, during that freeze in Texas, a buddy of mine lost power for 9 days. He had rice, he had beans, but everything he cooked tasted like cardboard and left him feeling drained. I sent him a jar of ghee. He mixed 1 spoonful into his rice every meal. Game changer. Not only did it taste like actual food, but he stopped feeling weak by day 3. Here's what nobody talks about. Your body cannot process vitamins A, D, E, and K without fat. All those vegetables you stockpiled? Useless if you do not have fat to unlock them. Ghee does that. A 16-ounce jar costs about $7 at Trader Joe's or any Indian grocery store. Meanwhile, preppers are spending $50 on freeze-dried butter powder that tastes like chemicals. Ghee lasts indefinitely if you keep it sealed and away from heat. I have jars in my pantry from 4 years ago. Opened 1 last month. Perfect. And here is why it survives every shortage. Most Americans have never bought it. It is not on the panic buy list. When the next crisis hits, the butter aisle will be empty. The ghee will still be there. Look, food prices are climbing faster than most families can keep up with. And stockpiling the wrong stuff is just burning money you do not have. I have done the homework for you and put together a free emergency pantry guide that lists the exact items you should keep, where to buy them cheap, and how to store them so they actually last. It can feed your family for 2 weeks and costs less than a single grocery run. You can grab it for free at the link in the description, so you can stop guessing and start building a pantry that actually works. Number 2 is something sitting in the Asian aisle right now that most people walk right past. Dried seaweed, nori sheets, kombu, wakame, any of it. This is not hippie health food. This is survival gold. 1 sheet of nori contains more iodine than most people get in an entire week. And iodine is something your thyroid cannot live without. When supply chains break, iodized salt runs out fast. Nobody thinks about it until it is gone. I learned this from a guy who spent 30 years in emergency management. He told me that after every major disaster, within 2 weeks, thyroid issues start showing up in people who were perfectly healthy before. Iodine deficiency hits faster than you think. Fatigue, brain fog, your metabolism crashes. Dried seaweed prevents that, and it lasts forever. I have kombu in my pantry from 2019. Still crisp, still perfect. Here is how I use it. When I cook rice or soup, I toss in a small strip of kombu. It adds minerals and a subtle umami flavor that makes cheap food taste expensive. You do not even have to eat the strip. Just let it simmer and pull it out. A 10-ounce bag of kombu costs about $3 at H-Mart or any Asian grocery. Compare that to iodine tablets that cost $20 and taste like poison. Seaweed gives you the same benefit, plus trace minerals like magnesium and calcium that tablets do not have. And when the next shortage comes, nobody is fighting over seaweed. I promise you that. Number 3 is one that most preppers have heard of, but totally misunderstand. Honey. Real, raw honey. Not the plastic bear bottle stuff that is basically corn syrup with food coloring. I am talking about raw, unfiltered honey from a local beekeeper or a health food store. Here is the wild part. Archaeologists found jars of honey in Egyptian tombs that were over 3,000 years old. Still edible. Honey does not expire. Ever. It might crystallize, but you just warm the jar in hot water and it goes right back to liquid. The reason it lasts forever is because honey is too acidic and too low in moisture for bacteria to survive. It is nature's only food that cannot spoil. I keep a gallon jar in my pantry. When I opened it after 2 years, it looked and tasted exactly the same. But here is the real reason honey is a survival MVP. It is medicine. Raw honey has natural antibacterial properties. You can put it directly on cuts, burns, or infections. During a grid-down situation when you cannot get to a pharmacy, honey can literally prevent an infection from killing you. My neighbor sliced his hand open on a fence last summer. No power, no way to get to urgent care. I told him to wash it, pack it with raw honey, and wrap it. 3 days later, it was healing clean. No infection. Beyond that, honey is instant energy. 1 tablespoon has 64 calories and hits your bloodstream fast. If someone is in shock or exhausted, honey brings them back quick. A quart of raw local honey costs about $15 at a farmer's market. A single course of antibiotics at urgent care costs $200. Do the math. And when panic hits, people grab sugar and flour. Nobody thinks about honey until it is too late. Number 4 is one that is going to make you wonder why nobody ever talks about it. Bouillon cubes. Specifically, the ones that come in the little foil-wrapped squares. Chicken, beef, vegetable does not matter. These things last longer than you or I will be alive. I have cubes in my pantry from 3 years ago, still perfect. Bouillon cubes are pure salt, fat, and dehydrated flavoring. There is no moisture, which means there is nothing for bacteria to grow on. They do not expire. The date on the box is for flavor quality, not safety. Here is why they are critical. Food monotony will break you faster than hunger. When you are eating plain rice for the 5th day in a row, your brain starts to shut down. You get decision fatigue. You make dumb mistakes. But if you dissolve 1 bouillon cube into that rice while it is cooking, suddenly it tastes like an actual meal. Your morale stays up. Your brain stays sharp. I learned this from a guy who did 2 tours in logistics for the military. He said the number 1 thing that tanked troop performance was not lack of food, it was boring food. When soldiers got tired of MREs, they started trading, skipping meals, losing energy. The units that had hot sauce and bouillon stayed effective longer. That is not just military. That is human nature. A box of 25 cubes costs about $2 at Walmart. Meanwhile, preppers are spending $40 on flavoring packets that do the same thing. Bouillon is cheaper, lasts forever, and takes up almost no space. And here is the kicker. When the next crisis hits, the spice aisle might get hit. But nobody is thinking about bouillon cubes. Number 5 is going to sound boring, but it is absolute gold. White rice, not brown rice. White. Brown rice has oils in the bran that go rancid after about 6 months, even in perfect storage. White rice, when stored correctly, lasts 30 years. I am not exaggerating. The U.S. government has tested this. White rice in airtight containers with oxygen absorbers stays edible for decades. A 20-pound bag costs about $15 at any grocery store. That is 200 servings. Compare that to freeze-dried rice at prepper sites that runs $60 for the same amount. It is the exact same food. You are just paying for marketing. Here's what I do. I buy white jasmine rice in bulk, pour it into food-grade 5-gallon buckets, toss in oxygen absorbers, and seal the lid. Done. No fancy equipment. No freeze dryer. Just rice, bucket, absorber. I have buckets I sealed in 2016. Opened one last year to rotate stock. The rice cooked up perfect. No off smell, no weird taste, just rice. White rice is the ultimate base. You can pair it with anything. Beans, canned meat, vegetables, bouillon, ghee. It absorbs flavor and fills you up. And your body digests it easily, which matters when stress is high and your gut is off. When the next shortage hits, rice will get hit hard, but it is available everywhere right now. Stock up before that changes. Number 6 is one most people have never even heard of: nutritional yeast. Before you click away thinking this is vegan hippie food, hear me out. Nutritional yeast is deactivated yeast that has been dried into flakes. It tastes like cheese, which already makes it valuable, but here is the kicker. And it is one of the only plant-based foods that contains complete B vitamins, including B12. When you are in a prolonged emergency and not eating meat regularly, B12 deficiency will wreck you. Fatigue, memory loss, nerve damage, it sneaks up on you. Nutritional yeast prevents that. A 1-pound bag costs about $8 at Whole Foods or any health food store. It lasts for years in a sealed container. I have a bag from 2020. Still tastes fresh. Here's how I use it. I sprinkle it on popcorn, mix it into rice, stir it into soups. It adds a cheesy umami flavor that makes cheap food taste rich. 2 tablespoons give you a full day of B vitamins. No pills, no supplements, just food. And here is why it survives a shortage. Most preppers have never heard of it. It is not on any mainstream list. When panic buyers are clearing shelves, nutritional yeast will still be sitting there. Number 7 is sitting at your local grocery store right now for under $3, and almost nobody thinks to stockpile it. Salt. Not iodized table salt. I am talking about pure salt, sea salt, kosher salt, canning salt. Pure salt never expires. It is a mineral. There is nothing in it to go bad. I have salt in my pantry that is 5 years old. It is chemically identical to the day I bought it. But here is what most people miss. Salt is not just flavor, it is a preservative. Before refrigeration, salt was the only way to keep meat from rotting. You can cure fish, preserve vegetables, make food last months longer, all with salt. A 3-pound container of sea salt costs about $2 at Walmart. That is enough to preserve hundreds of pounds of food. Compare that to freeze-drying or canning, which requires expensive equipment and electricity. Salt requires nothing, just salt and time. Beyond preservation, your body cannot survive without sodium. When you sweat, you lose salt. In a crisis where you are working hard, hauling water, cutting wood, you are losing salt fast. If you do not replace it, you cramp up, your blood pressure drops, you pass out. I learned this the hard way during a summer power outage. I was drinking tons of water but felt like garbage. A buddy who is a paramedic told me I was flushing out my electrolytes. I started adding a pinch of salt to my water. Within an hour, I felt human again. Salt is survival. And when the next crisis hits, people panic, buy food, but forget the basics. Salt will disappear. Stock it now. Number 8 is one that is going to surprise you. At maple syrup. Real maple syrup, not pancake syrup, which is just corn syrup and artificial flavor. Real pure maple syrup is boiled tree sap with nothing added. It lasts indefinitely. The sugar content is so high that bacteria cannot grow. If it crystallizes, you just warm it up. If mold forms on top, you scrape it off. The syrup underneath is still perfectly safe. I have a glass jug of maple syrup from 2018. Opened it last fall. Perfect. Here is why it matters. Maple syrup is fast energy. It hits your bloodstream quicker than white sugar because it contains trace minerals that help your body process it. When someone is weak, cold, or in shock, a spoonful of maple syrup brings them back. It is also a morale booster. When you are eating bland survival food for days, a little sweetness keeps your mind right. A 32-ounce jug of real maple syrup costs about $20 at the grocery store. That is 64 servings. It is not cheap, but it lasts forever and does things white sugar cannot. And when panic buyers are grabbing sugar and flour, maple syrup stays on the shelf. Number 9 is the one I mentioned at the start, and it is absolute gold. Dried lentils, specifically red lentils or yellow split peas. These are sitting in the bulk section of any ethnic grocery store for under $4 a pound. Dried lentils last 10 years easily, and if you store them with oxygen absorbers, they will last 30. Here is what makes them better than beans. Lentils cook in 15 minutes. No soaking, no overnight prep. Just rinse and boil. When you are tired, stressed, or low on fuel, that speed matters. I have made lentil soup on a camp stove in under 20 minutes. Try that with dried beans. Lentils are also packed with protein and fiber. 1 cup cooked gives you 18 grams of protein and keeps you full for hours. A 5-pound bag costs about $8 at an Indian grocery store. That is 50 servings of protein. Compare that to freeze-dried meals that cost $6 per serving. It is not even close. And here is the big one. Nobody fights over lentils. During the 2020 shortages, I watched beans disappear. Lentils were fully stocked. Same nutrition, same shelf life, zero competition. Number 10 is one that every prepper has in their pantry, but most people store wrong. Whole grains, specifically wheat berries, spelt, or kamut, not flour. Whole intact grains last 30 years when stored properly. Flour goes rancid in 6 months. The oils in the grain oxidize once it is ground. A whole grain stay dormant until you mill them. A 25-pound bag of wheat berries costs about $20 at a feed store or bulk health food store. That is hundreds of loaves of bread worth of flour, fresh whenever you need it. Here is what changed my mind about this. I bought a hand-crank grain mill for $50. I can grind a cup of wheat berries into fresh flour in under 2 minutes. That flour tastes nothing like store-bought. It is nutty, rich, alive. I use it for bread, pancakes, tortillas. And because I am grinding it fresh, I get all the nutrients that are lost when flour sits on a shelf for months. Whole grains are dense calories. 1 pound of wheat has 1,500 calories. When food is scarce, that density matters. And here is the kicker. Nobody panic buys wheat berries. They do not even know what they are. Number 11 is one that most people think of as a snack, but is actually a survival powerhouse. Popcorn kernels. Unpopped kernels last indefinitely if kept dry. I have kernels from 2017. They still pop perfectly. A 2-pound bag costs about $3 at the grocery store. That is over 50 servings. Popcorn is a whole grain. 3 cups popped has fiber, some protein, and fills you up. You can pop it on a stove, over a fire, even in a pan with a lid. No electricity needed. Here is what makes it brilliant. Popcorn is a comfort food. When things are bad, when stress is high, when kids are scared, popcorn feels normal. It is something you can make that feels like a treat, even when everything else is falling apart. I add nutritional yeast or a little ghee and salt. Suddenly, it is not just survival food. It is something people actually want to eat. And when the next crisis hits, people are not thinking about popcorn. They are grabbing canned soup and pasta. Popcorn stays on the shelf. Number 12 is going to sound too simple, but it is critical. Baking soda, pure sodium bicarbonate. It lasts forever. There is no expiration. I have boxes from 2015 that work exactly the same as fresh. A 1-pound box costs about $1. You can buy a 13-pound bag at Costco for $7. Here is what most people miss. Baking soda is not just for cooking, it is medicine. You can use it as an antacid for stomach issues. Mix it with water for heartburn relief. Use it as toothpaste. Use it to treat minor burns or bee stings. It neutralizes acid and reduces pain. Beyond that, it is a cleaning agent. You can scrub pots, wash clothes, offer deodorized water containers, all with baking soda. In a long-term crisis, hygiene becomes survival. Infections kill. Being able to clean without chemicals keeps you healthy. And baking soda is versatile in cooking. You can make bread rise, tenderize beans, even make homemade tortillas with just flour, baking soda, salt, and water. For $1, you get a tool that does 10 jobs. And when panic hits, nobody thinks about baking soda. Number 13 is the one that ties everything together and most people completely overlook. Vinegar, white distilled vinegar. It lasts forever. The acidity prevents anything from growing in it. I have a jug from 2016, still perfect. A gallon costs about $3 at any grocery store. Here is why it is essential. Vinegar is a preservative. You can pickle vegetables, preserve eggs, extend the life of fresh food without refrigeration. It is also a disinfectant. You can clean wounds, sterilize surfaces, purify questionable water by killing bacteria. In a situation where you do not have bleach or alcohol, vinegar does the job. Beyond that, it is a flavor agent. A splash of vinegar brightens up bland food. It cuts through fat, balances sweetness, makes cheap ingredients taste intentional. I use it in soups, on beans, mixed with oil as a dressing. And here is the last thing. Vinegar is a natural remedy. You can use it for sore throats, skin irritations, even as a fever reducer when diluted. A gallon of vinegar is a pharmacy, a cleaning supply, and a pantry staple all in one. And when the next shortage comes, people grab milk and eggs. Vinegar sits untouched, while everyone else is fighting over the same freeze-dried meals and spending hundreds on stuff that tastes like cardboard. You now know 13 foods that cost less, last longer, and will actually still be on shelves when the next crisis hits. These are not theories. These are items sitting in my pantry right now that have gotten me through power outages, supply chain breakdowns, and price spikes without panic. Drop a comment and tell me which one of these you are stocking up on first, because I want to know what resonates with you. And next week, I am breaking down the survival gear everyone swears by that will actually get you killed when things go bad. You do not want to miss that one. I will see you then. The truth is, building a real survival pantry is not about being paranoid or living in fear. It is about being smart with your money right now while prices are still reasonable and shelves are still stocked. I get messages every week from people who say they wish they had started sooner, and I understand that feeling. But the good news is that it is never too late to begin. You can start this week with just a few dollars. Buy 1 jar of ghee, grab a bag of lentils, pick up some seaweed. Start small and build momentum. Most people fail at this because they try to do everything at once and get overwhelmed. That is not how this works. This is a long game. Every single item you add to your pantry is like putting money in the bank. When a shortage comes, you have already paid the cheap price. You are not competing with panicked crowds. You are not paying inflated crisis prices. You are just using what you already have. Here is something else I want you to understand. Stockpiling these items is not selfish. It is not hoarding. It is responsible. When you take food off the market during normal times, you are actually helping stabilize prices for everyone else. You are spreading your consumption out. You are not part of the problem during a crisis. You are part of the solution. Your family eats what you stored. You do not add to the chaos. You do not put more pressure on supply chains that are already struggling. And if things stay normal, which I hope they do, you still win. You rotate your stock. You use it. You save money over time. There is literally no downside. One more thing that I think is important to mention. Do not get caught up in the perfectionism trap. You do not need a basement full of food to make this work. You do not need expensive vacuum sealers or fancy storage systems. You do not need to read 10 different prepper websites and cross-reference their data. You just need to start. Get the items on this list. Store them in a cool, dark, dry place. Label them with the date. Rotate your stock by using the oldest items first and replacing them. That is it. That is the entire system. Simple beats complicated every single time, especially when you're trying to build something sustainable that will actually last. I also want to address something I hear a lot. People say, well, what if I do not like these foods? What if they do not work for my family? Here's my answer. You are not locked in. This is not a rigid dogma. Take these 13 items as a framework, not a final answer. If you hate seaweed, do not buy seaweed. Find something else that has similar nutrition and shelf life. If your family does not eat lentils, try chickpeas or split peas instead. If maple syrup feels too expensive, use honey. The point is not the specific items. The point is the principles. You want foods that last forever or nearly forever. You want foods that are cheap right now. You want foods that nobody else is thinking about, so they are still available. You want foods that actually nourish your body. Once you understand those principles, you can build your own list that fits your life, your budget, and your family's needs. The final thing I want to leave you with is this. Do not let perfect be the enemy of good. You do not need to have everything figured out before you start. You do not need to buy in bulk today. You do not need to have a 10-year plan written down. You just need to take the first step. Buy one item from this list this week. Get it home. Put it in your pantry. That is a win. Next week, buy another one. That is momentum. Keep going. By the end of the month, you will have a small but real emergency pantry. By the end of the year, you will have something substantial. And by the time a real crisis comes, you will not be panicking. You will be calm because you already have what you need. Thank you for sticking with me this far. I know this is a longer format video than most of what is out there. But I wanted to give you real value instead of just clickbait and hype. This stuff matters. Your family's security matters. Being prepared matters. And I appreciate you taking the time to learn from what I have built over the past 11 years. If this video helped you or gave you ideas, can you please hit that like button? It helps the algorithm push this content to more people who need it. And if you have not subscribed yet, now is the time. I post new content every single week about real preparedness, not the gear that looks cool but does not work. I break down what actually matters when things go wrong. I share lessons learned from real situations, not theoretical scenarios. You do not want to miss that. Drop a comment down below. Tell me which item from this list you are going to start with. Tell me what you already have in your pantry. Tell me what foods your family loves that you think could be part of an emergency stockpile. This is a community, and I want to hear from you. I will see you next week. Stay prepared.